G'day folks, welcome to this live playthrough of Enemy Action Ardennes, the German solo game. I'm actually halfway through this game. I thought I'd just pause here and run through this live. Of course, there is the sequel to this, Enemy Action Kharkov, coming out later this year. And so I thought I'd run through a live play to show how this works, give people a sense of gameplay, and if anyone comes along and has any questions, I'll try and address those and clear things up and give you a sense of what this is all about. Look, this is a very big game. The rules just for this German solo are 68 pages long. There are a lot of concepts and terms that are rather unique to this system. Just to give you an example, when you're running through, let me try and find a page of concepts. Here we go. Here's when we're referring to allied card activations. You've got all these key terms that you need to note, such as protect VP hex or preserve the line. Cards will often tell you that the allied forces will act, but they will preserve the line or they'll protect VP hex. You need to keep these in mind. You need to know what they are and thus how the allied units will behave. So just a moment ago, I had a situation where the allies were wanting to launch, in fact they did launch a major offensive. You can see I've lost a unit here, but in fact in that major offensive they wanted to protect a VP hex. So this unit in Rochefort didn't move out, but they weren't concerned with protecting the line. So they all came rushing down. Incidentally, protecting the line didn't matter that much. They've still got a line basically. But yeah, there's all these, point is, all these concepts that you need to sort of grasp and understand. I'll also point out at the very beginning, there are some very good and detailed full playthroughs available on YouTube. If you check out my preview for Enemy Action Kharkov, I've listed two of these in the description. These are full playthroughs. I highly recommend the playthrough from Grantos. I can't remember his surname, but Grant did, what seems to be a very polished and accurate playthrough. It is easy to get things wrong in this game. It is easy. There are so many concepts, and you're running through these action cards, and it is just so easy to miss something or not notice something. You have to look at the position on the board and kind of run through these steps. So the idea of this video, this live play, is to give you a sense of what this is like and run through some of this. Most likely make some mistakes along the way, and convey a sense of what this is like to play. To take a few steps back, like I said, this is my game situation, my current game. I've played this a couple of times. This is the first time I've played it in a while. I took a long break from it. The game starts off with, of course, the Germans positioned along the west wall. Early game, your approach is to try to destroy these American units on the frontier or the front, just to eliminate them and open gaps. You want to be able to push to these roads beyond and drive west as rapidly as possible, and you want to avoid this American opposition. Pretty soon, the AI system will start throwing up roadblocks, and roadblocks can turn into American reserves. American reserves also appear elsewhere, and the system gradually creates the front line. So only on this turn, I'm currently at the 22nd of December. The game starts on the 16th. You can see the turn track up here. Only on this turn did a solid American front line actually develop for the first time all game. They have tried a couple of times to form front lines, and I keep sort of circling around them and breaking through. So you want to kind of push that formation of an allied front line out as long as possible. And it's really exciting at the very start of the game when you destroy these units along the rivers. You find some bridges to cross. You send your armoured units or mechanised units racing ahead. And yeah, units start to pop up and you circle around them. Up here, I've pocketed a lot of American units. These guys have been resupplied by air supply, and every time you're moving, there's this fascinating tension which I love about this game. Until turn 20, every time you move adjacent to one of these, what are called hold points, you roll a die, and if you roll less than or equal to that hold point, you'll place what's called a roadblock marker. Now, if you're on a road connected to that, you halt your movement. Now, the next time you activate that unit, they roll to see if this turns into an American unit. And again, on a 2 or hold marker value or less, an American reserve unit may pop up, and suddenly you've got some American opposition. Gradually, as you push out, and again, you're trying to move around, trying to use these road networks to push west. Your objective is, of course, the Meuse. I think that's your big sort of objective. But along the way, you're trying to capture these victory point objectives here. I've captured Bastogne. I've captured Saint Hubert down here. I've captured La Roche here, Vilsam, St Vith, and so forth. So you're capturing these victory point cities, towns along the way, trying to build up to a certain victory point objective. Every turn from about the 4th turn on, from the 20th of December onwards, you can achieve victory if you've achieved a certain victory point margin. So for example, on the 20th of December, if you have 40 victory points, you achieve a strategic victory. But if you're sitting at 11 or less, you suffer a strategic defeat. You also gain victory points for eliminating American units. Every pair of American units, I believe, is 1 victory point. So yeah, you're kind of trying to destroy the Americans, capture these towns, whilst also ultimately pushing the line out, striving for the Meuse. You can get 10 victory points if you cross the Meuse. Plus, this is, of course, where all the big VP cities are, like Namur and Liège and Huy in the centre there. Sorry about that. Just going to give the camera a very quick wipe, so bear with me for a second. All right, it's a bit better. So yeah, you're shifting shifting out to the west. You're capturing these cities. You're trying to get around the Americans and delay their formation of their front line. So kind of almost trying to stretch their lines out and make it very difficult for them once the line starts to form. So you can see the Americans form this line along here. You've got some choices. You can either confront them face on, or you can go around them. So that's what I've done here. Basically, the front line formed. I was able to, I can't recall exactly what happened here. I was somehow able to, I think I got through the defenders over here. This is a very difficult and slow crossing, which is why I haven't gone far beyond it. But the line formed from the north, it kind of stretched down to here. These are all the same core. And then I was able to push across this bridge here. You've got to stop in an enemy zone of control. Then you can move from there to here. And basically it's almost going 1 hex at a time. Your sort of decision-making process is driven by, if I can just pan down, your cards, the cards in your hand. Typically, you'll have a hand of 6 cards. I'm right at the end of the 22nd December, so I've only got 3 cards left. I've gone through my entire deck. These are my final 3 cards. The last formation to activate was, incidentally, the 47th 47th Corps, and they can't activate again. Doesn't matter because I don't have their card. Basically, you pick one of these cards and activate the corresponding formation. Now, it could be just a particular core. In this case, you can activate all units in the core. If you've got any reserves, and incidentally, I do have a reserve formation here for this core. I can deploy all their core reserves. I really find that of value. You can assign replacement points to the core from the 20th of December onwards, or I can activate any one German unit. And I've already done that for this turn. And I did that to secure the supply depot in Marsh out there, which gave me my 3rd fuel point. This is another set of rules which I won't go into. Sometimes you get special cards like this. This is the entire 6th Panzer Army under Dietrich. I can deploy all 6th Panzer Army reserves. I actually don't have any at present. I can activate a Kampfgruppe. This is basically where I take the Kampfgruppe marker over here. I place it in a hex and I activate all German units within 2 hexes of that. That's a bad placement, but just for example, provided I think there are in the 6th Panzer Army on this card. Or I can activate one 6th Panzer Army Corps, which is probably what I'm about to do. I'm playing the German solo, so I only look at the G values here. I ignore the A. Or I could do this event, any command event. And the command events can be pretty good. I rarely think it's worth spending this card for that effect. This is a chart detailing all the various command events on the left, combat tactic events on the right, and then there are special events which happen on particular dates. So for example, none of the cards I have illustrate this, but some cards will say on the 21st you can do this. So here's my situation. I've pushed out. The American front line has just become solid. This is, as I said, the first turn where their 3rd Corps reinforcements have recently arrived. They've very quickly launched an attack. The attack didn't go very well. They did eliminate one unit. They eliminated these guys who were sitting somewhere just outside St. Hubert. But they also launched an attack here, which maybe they did succeed. But they suffered some losses along the way. I think they killed the unit, but suffered, I believe it may have been these guys, suffered 2 step losses, which I'm pretty happy with. So now I'm faced with this difficult sort of situation where there's a front line in front of me, and combat is pretty punishing. To resolve combat, I covered this in a video earlier. You draw chits from this counter. So just to give you a hypothetical, this is not an actual combat, but let's say I activated this formation here, and they were to attack this this stack here. I'll run through this just to show you how it works. There are 4 defending steps there, so I draw 4 counters. Technically you do this one at a time, but I'll show you how this works. Now, if only the defender has armor, so first of all you look at priority. So if only the... Where is the priority on this one? Oh, okay. If only the attacker, there isn't one. If only the attacker has armor, you apply that side. If only the defender has armor, you apply that. You look here, odds ratio, if I have 7-to-1, apply that as a priority, the little P. If not, flip it over. If it's that, apply that, and so forth. And you go through those counters one at a time. Most of the time, they're pretty straightforward, easy to grasp, easy to understand, but I feel like they tend to favour the allies. So you really need to bring some massive stacks of attackers to do well. Now, I had some big breakthroughs up in the north. The 1st SS Panzer did a beautiful breakthrough along here, drove to Verviers, captured it. Actually, they had to force the defenders out, but they attacked in force, got all the way to the outskirts of Liège, and all these reinforcements popped up. And they attacked and attacked. I think they launched 3 attacks and just could not break through. So my decision now has been to stop attacking there. You can see that they've got some improved positions. The green little markers indicate improved positions. Technically they look like this, but then they cover up the unit and you can't see their value. So I like to put a little green marker instead. So I've started now to pull the 1st SS back, and they're basically garrisoning the position up north. It keeps the Americans in this area. And I also brought in the 2nd SS Corps, these kind of grey-black units here, to support them. So they're all working together around this area to drive towards the Meuse. I was stopped, basically the Meuse runs through this hex side, so I'm 1 hex away from the Meuse and stopped short. 1st SS is now, as I said, garrisoning these positions. You can see they're in position there, they're in position there. And my next move is basically to shift the 9th SS back down to basically a position where they can use their strength. They're butting their heads against the wall here. Your attacker strength is halved across these rivers. So attack here and attack here is pretty much futile all along here. There are 3 very strong defenders here in an improved position. An improved position will cancel a hit. I'm looking at this hex here. Maybe this one at a stretch, but ideally this one. I've already launched one attack, which failed. I'm looking to attack in there again. So let me show you how this works in practice. I've got 3 cards in my hand. I'm going to play the 6th German Army Dietrich to activate a Kampfgruppe. Now, bear in mind, whilst I've played this quite a few times, I'm always making mistakes. So don't treat this necessarily as an instructional video, but just as a sense of what it's like to kind of make decisions in this game. I get to place the Kampfgruppe command marker in any hex. I can now activate any activate one Kampfgruppe. Actually, you know what? Instead of doing that, I can just activate 1/6 Panzer Army Corps, and I'm going to activate the 9th SS, the 2nd SS Division as my corps. So instead of activating 6 Panzer Army in this area, I'm activating the entire black bordered or black headed corps. And I'll start with these guys. So the 1st SS have just taken over the garrison duties here. It's difficult for the Americans to attack across. They'll be halved as well. And I am in this wooded terrain. What I'd like to do is move as much as possible down here. There's a big stack there. I'm trying to get into this area. It's tough. It's a long route to get there. And there aren't many ways in. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. It's not adjacent to it, and there's a river there as well, I've just noticed. It's not adjacent to it yet, but on my next move, I plan to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These guys can make it, and they will go 1, 2, no they can't, 3, 4, 5. These guys can make it, and they will go 1. Yeah, okay. So I now have 13 combat factors plus the 7, but they're of a different core entirely. There are certain events that let you bring these core in. Unfortunately, I don't have any in my hand. I can now attack with these 3 units. They've moved. I don't think there's any more. Oh, these guys, of course. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll bring them down as well. All right, I can now launch an attack with these units on the Americans in this area. They're in a town, which is going to cancel 1 hit. And I'm only attacking from 1 hex. So, what I'm going to do is play this card. So let me run through the combat sequence correctly so I get it all right for you all. Okay, declare target. Play combat cards. So this is my target, these are my attackers. I'm playing infantry infiltration. This is a combat tactic, sorry for the glare, that play for attacking with at least 1 infantry or mechanised infantry unit. I do have a mechanised infantry there. The defender is considered flanked, regardless of the number of hexes, blah, 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 and the attack is not considered a 1 hex attack, despite it actually being a 1 hex attack. This will enable me to trigger certain events that require, for example, this one. If this is a flank attack, I cause the defender hit. I'm looking for these kind of counters. I then draw an allied command card. and I check first of all to see if there are what are called hidden defenders, I think. Basically, if this card matches the formation I'm attacking, so this is 7th Armoured, 18th Corps, it's not even 18th Corps, so I'm pretty safe there. In that case, I just apply the combat tactic. So now we have allied air power. Now that doesn't mean much by itself. All we know is that the allies have brought air power to support this attack. Having said that, there aren't many, well, my experience has been there's not many allied air power tokens, but when they do come out, they're quite devastating. So this counter, if it was drawn during this combat, would instantly cause 2 German losses, regardless of whether they were attacking or defending. Now, here comes my attack. I start to draw combat chits. I'm attacking defenders, so the minimum number of chits I draw is equal to their steps. They have 2 steps, so I draw 1. Okay, now what are my odds here? I have got 13 on 4, so 3 to 1. So he's not 6 to 1. Do I have combat engineer? No, I don't. So that doesn't apply. And 2, it's not 8 to 1. And it is greater than 3 to 1. So that doesn't apply either. That's close. If it was slightly less than 3 to 1, I would have suffered an attacker hit. That's the bare minimum. Now at this stage, you can say, this isn't going too well for me. I think I'm not going to draw anymore. There are certain chits, for example, this one. If I were to draw this, I haven't drawn this, this is just an example. It's in, I believe this is in a town, which would cause an attacker hit and a D-1. So if I drew this, I might say, well, I might stop here, no more. But we'll give it another go. I can now drop to my maximum. To determine my maximum, I count the number of attackers. 1, 2, 3. And then I have these modifiers. So I have an elite unit, which makes that +1. I've played 1 combat card, +1. That's about it. I have no attacking units with 3 or 4 steps. That would add additional cards. The defenders aren't out of supply or isolated. And I haven't played any combat tactics that would specifically add to that. So I can draw up to 5 counters. I've drawn 2. I get to draw 3 more. Here we go. The defender is dispersed or unsupplied. Doesn't apply. We flip it over. Is there a defender adjacent? No, there's not. Doesn't apply. 2 more to go. Here we go. Defender artillery? No. Attacker artillery? No. 1 more to go. And finally, is it a flank attack? First of all, sorry. Is it a flank attack? Yes, because I played infantry infiltration. So on the last counter, this is actually pretty rare, I managed to score a single hit. At this point in the game, by the 20th December, you're doing less powerful attacks, you're drawing fewer counters out of the cup, and this is probably a relatively typical combat. You might get 1 or 2 hits on either side, but not a great deal. Now, we resolve these hits. There is 1 defender hit, no attacker hits. We work through, basically, there's a sequence of processes to resolve these hits. If the defender has retreated 2 hexes, they lose a hit. They haven't done that. If the hits is greater than steps, they retreat a hex. They haven't done that. If losing a step would cause them to exert no zone of control, they would retreat. They haven't done that. So step 4 is we check their hold chance, which is 3. And we basically roll a die here. So let me get my die. And I'll give you a view of what's happening. I roll a 5. So the hold chance is the hex's hold value, which is 3, plus the defending steps, so it goes up to 5. Ooh, if it is less than or equal to the hold chance, which it is exactly, then they take a step loss. If it was higher than that, and you know what? Sorry, my apologies. They're in a town, and the effects of town is to absorb 1 step loss. So those plucky Americans escape without suffering a step loss and without retreating. So I needed to inflict at least 2 losses. This is where it gets really difficult. Bringing this 2nd SS Panzer Division that'll be the 9th as well, has no effect. My turn is over, so we now shift to the allies. And when we do an allied turn, we draw the top card from the allied command deck, flip it over, and look what we got. Their first priority is to deploy all core reserves. Well, there are none left available, they're all on the board. This is the 5th corps from the 1st Army. It's a German solo, so we look at the G, expedite core reserves. So when this happens, I basically look at the next turn and look to see if there are any 5th corps reserves on the following day. There aren't, so I can ignore that and skip to the next one. The next one is to consider adding 2 replacement points to the corps. Now, I believe, so where is 5th corps? They're looking up here. I think they'll only do this if they can add 2 steps. And I don't think they can add 1 here. Technically, these guys are actually in supply. They receive air support. It's frustrating, but technically in supply, despite being isolated there, at least for this turn. They'll start to go into low supply, out of supply in subsequent turns. So I don't think, this is one thing where I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that because they can't, here we go. So this is my very handy, I don't know who produced this, but it's on Board Game Geek. Add steps to reduce unit in listed corps. If the corps has 2 or more eligible reduced units, they don't. So they'll skip that. We'll then activate all units in the corps. The way this works is, first of all, I check to see if they would be activated. So it's not guaranteed that they'll activate. This is where I kind of know exactly where this is in the rulebook because I'm always popping up. The activation criteria. Are there any of these units wandering behind enemy lines? I need to double check what that means as well. The out of communication, not in a town or city, and able to move. No, these guys way up here are in a town or city. So they, I believe, were wandering around before. Are any of these 5th corps units in danger of being surrounded? But not yet surrounded. They were already surrounded, so we kind of ignore them. These guys are definitely not in danger of surround. In fact, I believe the next criteria apply. Out of contact, 9.3. Out of contact effectively means, let me read it to you, the allied unit is in communication and no German unit is proximate to that unit. So no German unit basically can move to where this unit is. And the removal of the unit would not create a gap in the line. So that meets the criteria then to activate this 5th corps. When we activate, when we've determined that they can be activated, we draw the top 3 cards of the Allied action deck and flip them over and put them in numerical order from 4, 8, 15. Basically, you resolve these one at a time. So look at the top card, the 4. This is going to be major offensive, this could hurt. I look at the activation numbers, and this basically means that I'll review units in that corps numbered from 0 to 19. Anything above 19, basically the numbers on these units are shown in the middle center here. So looking up, if I can take you a little bit closer to the 5th corps, there aren't many of them around. We've got some there. They have an activation rating of 9 and 12. And that's it. I think I've pocketed the rest of them around this area. Excuse me. These guys, they will still activate. So I look for a major offensive, and I think I'm going to be in trouble out here in the east. Basically, we look to see if the strength of the unit or stack and other active units is greater than 2 times approximate German unit or stack. So we start looking, in fact, these guys might be too high. Nope, there's a 7 there. Look at the lowest numbered 5th corps unit is actually these guys here, 7. Incidentally, these guys were completely isolated and were being ground down through isolation attrition until we drew this dreaded Allied air supply card, which just sucks. So they are going to engage in a major offensive. They are 2 times greater than approximate German unit. They pick the lowest. This is where it gets interesting. 10.61 to approximate German unit or stack. Sometimes these cards say situational strength, and you'll basically modify the strength based on various criteria. So attacking across the river would give these guys half combat. You'd increase their situational strength. This doesn't call for situational strength. It just says they're basically their stack, and this stack is certainly weaker than this stack on face value, 1 versus 2. This basically means that they're going to this stack of 5 American 5th Corps units over there near Stavelot and Malmedy. I think they're in Malmedy. Will... Oh, hold on. Another German units is 2 times approximate German unit stack. Action cards. No, you always make a situational strength comparison. So you halve them if you're attacking across the river. Okay, so there would be 2.5. So I think actually, because they're in the forest, they're going to attack this unit here, which is probably even worse for me. A bit scary. Let me double check this. So they're across the river, so they're going to be 2.5. Yeah. So 2.5 to 1. I'm in forest. It's going to be 2.5 to 2. I think they're going to have a much greater strength. It'll be 5 to 2 attacking into this broken terrain out here. So this means that they're going to target this hex out in the broken area. And this says that all active units proximate to the strongest qualifying So does that mean as opposed to the weakest qualifying? See, I've played this game so many times, but there's another strong attack coming up as well. Strongest qualifying German stack. I think they're going to look to attack the strongest, basically. Other proximate units in the same army will reinforce. They can't move because they're locked in a zone of control, I believe. So they can't reinforce, basically. If 5 or more steps are attacking, we break off combat after 2 allied hits, otherwise after 1 allied hit. And they also have combat air power and a tank battalion. Tank battalion basically gives them the equivalent of armour, despite them not actually having armour. So, to resolve an allied attack, we draw an allied command card and we apply the combat tactic. In this case, it's reinforced battle. Nobody can move to reinforce. The stacked attack still has to qualify for the 2 times. Ah, you're right. So it wouldn't. They would have to attack that, wouldn't it? Because it's 2.5 to 2. So they can get a 5 on 2 here, which is at least 2 times. So they are going to attack this one. Thanks, John. Crikey, I'm rusty. So nobody can reinforce that battle. So the combat tactic doesn't have any effect. Now I can play 1 German combat tactic, but I've only got 1 card left, and it's infantry infiltration, which won't have any effect as the defender in this combat. So there's nothing I can do really. We now draw combat chits, and I have 2 steps here. So the minimum I'll draw is 2. Let's see how we go. Is it a large attack? No, it's not. Do they have air power? Unfortunately, they do. So that's going to be at least 1 German hit. The second chit is going to be, is it 2-to-1 odds? Yes, it is. So that's going to be another defender hit. Ouch. And they will keep drawing until they either inflict my steps plus 2, I believe, or 1 allied hit. This is a bad combat for me. So I'll keep drawing, and we get nobody's dispersed or unsupplied, and I don't have defenders adjacent, unfortunately, just in this particular hex. So that doesn't apply. That's so hold on. Maximum number, sorry, my apologies, is the number of attacking units 2 plus the number of attacker combat tactics. Well, we've got 1, 2, 3, so that's 5, 6 for the elite unit. So they're going to draw up to 6. They've done 3 so far. 4 is the attacker elite? Yes, they are. Unfortunately, that's going to be another hit. This could really hurt. 5 is attacker artillery. No. Defender artillery. No, that doesn't apply. And the last one, is it in clear? No. Is it in woods, forest, city? No. So what this means is I suffer 3 hits. That doesn't necessarily mean 3 step losses. Now, to resolve these hits, what can I do here? I can retreat up to 2 hexes, and if I do this, so I disperse the units, I can go 1, 2, and then take a step loss. So I can sort of shift over there, which is problematic because it kind of gives them some freedom to move now. I've had them locked in for so many turns, dwindling supplies, and then this air support has enabled them to attack basically. They don't suffer any hits, but now they look to see if they'll advance after combat. And basically they conduct this 1 unit at a time in ascending order. So the top unit, because it's the highest, the bottom unit first because it's the lowest number, working our way up. So they check the, I need to double check this. I haven't been, to be honest. This is the first time we've actually had, or second time, a decent American combat success. I'm a bit rusty on the advanced rules. They basically roll to determine whether or not they'll advance. So, for each unit eligible, check the movement arrows. Yep, that's their primary advance route. There are 0 American forces already in this hex, so that bottom unit will automatically advance. You can see that there on that table. If it's the primary forward route with 0 allied units already there, they will automatically advance. Otherwise, it may be a die roll. The next unit, we consider them. It's the primary route forward. There's already 1 allied unit in that hex, so they will advance on a roll of 1 to 7, and it's 9, so they'll stay where they are, which probably suits me well. Now incidentally, these guys, where they are right now, they're still kind of surrounded by my zones of control. We've got a little bit of freedom to move now, but not a great deal. You can see Zoc, my Zoc here, zones of control. So they're kind of still locked into that area. They're still going to be in reduced supply. They just kind of hurt me, inflicted 1, and I should also note that my units are now dispersed. So I think there's no zone of control through here as well. Fortunately, I'm pretty sure that as of right now, I have most things locked down. I hope. they can get supply. Well, there's a lot of limitations to their supply. I've never had to be too careful in checking it, but now I'm going to have to really have a good look. All right, that's only part of this American action. We continue checking other units of, yeah, ID right now, whenever you want. Got any questions? Happy to address them as much as I can. I'm kind of showing how rusty I've been. So these guys are done. They've taken their action. 5th Corps over there, but we've got this unit over here. The strength of that unit and other active units is greater than 2 times approximate German unit. There's none around here for this 3 strength American unit to assist. So we're pretty much done with that card, and we'll shift them over. We go to the next one. It's a strong attack. A strength of a unit or stack is 3 times approximate German unit. Again, that's not going to apply. We can shift that across. And the last one is a unit is proximate to, but not stacked with, allied unit with strength less than 3. So we're looking here, and I don't think there are any eligible units in the area. They've already had quite a few of these types of cards, so they're already quite strong. So they're not going to participate in that either. They are also, the next thing we look at is whether they can build an improved position, but they're in a town and they won't build improved positions in towns. So we can skip that as well. Step 4 is that we remove dispersed markers from non-attacking activated units, but there aren't any. So that's for the end of the American activation. Brings back to my turn. I've only got 1 card left, and it's the 85th Corps, who is sitting way down on the southern side of this this push, right down the map's edge. Now, I did have a plan for these guys. I was kind of going to go activate these guys and go 1, 2. It keeps these guys on low supply. They'll shift to out of supply. It keeps the zones of control so they can't bring supplies through, but puts me in a position to maybe make a run. I can't reach Ardennes this turn. It is 1 movement point to disengage from a zone of control, so 1, 2 to move into the woods, and then 3 to push back up again. Next turn, if I can activate these guys again, I can go 1, roll for a roadblock, and then potentially, things going well, move into Ardennes and capture the 5 VP city and a key US reinforced reserve entry point along this hex. So it's a bit of a gamble, but that's my plan. There is not much else happening with the rest of the 85th Corps. These guys are in important position, blocking supply for this unit. They'll deteriorate to out of supply. These guys are not projecting a zone of control, and they're enabling supplies to get through for my trapped 80 Corps unit here. You can see they actually got attacked and survived in broken terrain. These guys are just kind of holding this position. I don't really want the Americans moving into a west wall hex. That can be result in a loss of victory points. So they're kind of, although they're a decent 3-step unit, they're green and they're holding kind of a semi-important position around here. So that's the only movement I'm doing with the 85th Corps. That's done. The other thing I should point out is that each of these cards has a command value up in the top left. On the very first turn of the game, you keep playing these cards repeatedly over and over again, stacking them up until you reach a sum of 10 from all the cards you've played. On the second, so that's the very first activation, it's 10. For the rest of the day, it's 5. On the 17th of December, this drops down to 4. Now, basically, by the 22nd of December, my command limit is 2. So as soon as I play a 2-value card, it switches over to the Americans. That's the end of my turn. I'm not drawing any more cards for this. We draw an American allied command, rather, and we have an 8th Corps card. We have no Corps reserves to deploy. Let me check if there are any reserves to expedite. 8th Corps. There are not. Can we assign 2 replacement points to the Corps? I don't think so. They're out of supply. No, we're kind of looking down this area around here. A lot of them have been cut off, so these guys are out of supply. They're on low supply, but isolated. Basically, out of communication is the correct term. They're out of communication and out of supply. So now we activate all units in the core, and I know that they are eligible to receive an IP. Honestly, ID, it moves very slow. Like I said, this is probably the fourth, maybe the fifth time I've played this. I do like it, but it moves very, very slow. So how far am I? I'm 45 minutes into this recording, and look, if you could see how many I've always got the rulebook handy. I've always got the player aid cards. There are three player aid cards sitting around me. I've got various other play aid sheets. This is a very good summary sheet. It summarizes most of the core rules in a very succinct format. So these are all the action card terminology summaries. You've got a summary of pretty much everything you do on this nice little 14-page booklet. And there's always situations like that combat up there was a great example of where you kind of have to think about things, you kind of have to do some maths and say, okay, this unit is going to attack, where are they attacking to? And then you think, okay, they're going to attack there, and then you add it up and you're like, actually no, they're going to attack here instead. And it's the same with placing reinforcements. So let me run through another example and you'll get a sense of this. So I know they're going to activate. I can draw 2 cards. So we've gone through the allied action deck again. I've got a shuffle. Again, there's a 68-page rulebook. The rulebook, I will say, is very, very clear. It is very well written. It is, there are some, let me show you how good the examples are. It is just, it's a brilliant rulebook. Full page, color, illustrated examples with sort of various examples of, in this case, it's just German strategic movement, which you might think is pretty simple. It is, but they gave a full color, full page example to it. The previous page, just a full page illustration of movement. The movement rules are again pretty simple, but they go to that step of giving you a full page example. It's the same with so many other actions. This is an example of the combat mechanism. So 2 steps, so two minimum chit draws, and then how many attacking units? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for elite, 7 for your combat card. Gives you a maximum draw of 7, so it's all very nicely illustrated, but long, so it takes a long time to work through. I've also found it's easy to find things, so the index is great. I don't think I've ever thought, okay, where do I find up stuff on allied replacements? That's the term I'm looking for. Where do I find stuff on roadblocks? Oh, look, there's roadblocks, roadblock check, roadblock reserve check. It's always, it's getting quite worn, flicking through it with my thumb, but it's often easy to find things. I kind of know, you're consulting this a lot, you kind of know where the relevant information is before too long. I will say, like I said, I've played this close to half a dozen times or so, and I still make mistakes. So for example, early in the game, I made a clumsy mistake of placing this 5th Corps unit outside their zone of operation. And it actually disadvantages me. They shouldn't be there, they should be further north, which would have let me actually cut through this area. I could have been in a better position, but I just kind of rolled with it. It was 1 hex off. It hurt me more than it hurt the allies, so yeah, I accepted my mistake. Here we have, there's 2 more attacks happening. The 8th Corps activation. So all the 8th Corps units, and I'm going to italicize them. There's only 1, just those guys sitting outside Ardennes. With an improved position already, these guys are out of communication. Actually, sorry, they may be wandering behind. No, they're not, are they? out of communication, not in a town or city hex, and able to move. Okay, so maybe they are wandering. So move the hex, move the units. So let's check these guys. So move the hex into move the unit into a hex in allied communication, and stop if it can reach it in a single move. It can't, basically. They are well and truly, as soon as they move one hex, they're in an enemy zone of control and they'll have to stop, so they can't do that. If not possible, then move the unit into a westwall hex. If that's not possible, move the unit into a town or city. That's 1, 2. That's not possible. Roll the die. So, gotta find my die again. Here it is. On a 4, place the unit on the calendar. A number of days ahead equal to the die result. 4 days ahead, the unit has made its way back to the US lines and will re-enter play as a reserve unit. That at least gets them out of the way, I think. I think that was correct. They're wandering behind lines. They're out of communication, yes. They're not in a town or city, yes. They are able to move. Technically, yes. I'll double check the supply rules. Being low on supply, being out of supply, sorry. Means they can still move, yep. So they go ahead 4 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4. They'll be coming out much later on. Oops. We now have these guys. They can also move. They're out of communication. So let's see what they can do. They cannot reach a town or city. 2, 3. Actually, they could. They could come over here. So I think they'll try and wander. Yeah, I found, as John just said, placing reserves, hopefully we can place some, it's hard. For the first 6 turns, a lot of what you're doing is placing reserves. I'm at a point now where the Allies are counter-attacking, so we're kind of at the high point of the German advance. This is a particular phase of the game where it's getting very complex, and I wanted to highlight this. The opening turns are very easy. They're very nice, you rush through, it's all about your movement. You've got your thinking, 90% of your thinking is about what you can do and where you want to move. I'm now at the point of the game where 90% of my thinking is how are the Allies responding and calculating their response. Hey, Blue Tweeters. So, think about this unit here. They're wandering behind lines. They're out of communication, not in a town or city, and they can move. So they're going to go 1, 2, 3, and move behind the Germans into Martelange. They're still on low supply. They'll shift to out of supply. But that's my fault for leaving that open. That's something to be mindful of. Don't let them move into towns and cities behind your lines. These guys cannot move. So they are not wandering behind enemy lines. They will basically stay where they are and not do anything. And we have this unit here, and yeah, that's why we're drawing the activations. So what are they going to do? This is pretty much the only unit we need to think about for these actions is this formation here. Are they going to fill the gap? Are they proximate to an empty position to which a German unit is also proximate? This is an empty position to which a German unit is also proximate. So yes, they are. A position with a hold value less than 5 may not be in another Allied zone of control. There's a few things to consider here. Now it's getting difficult. They want to... Actually, did I just put these guys out of control? I think I did. Out of supply, rather. When I move them down here, what did they do? I think they were already out of supply. I'll work that out in a moment. I think there's mutual out of supply in this area. Now it gets really tricky. So I think basically they want to protect a VP hex by shifting back 1 hex there. Pretty straightforward. Move to the highest. If there's more than one choice for areas to move to, they want to move to the highest hold value. This is way off to the bottom of the camera, I know, but we're looking at Ardennes here. They're just going to move 1 hex back. It holds the line. It doesn't extend any gaps in the line. They're avoiding surround, which they want to do. Once they're on the edge of the board, they can't be surrounded, and it protects that VP hex. That basically means they won't leave a VP hex to achieve this objective. I don't have to worry about the other 2 because now all of the 8th core have acted, and those cards can be discarded. That command card can be discarded, and I'm now basically at the end of the day. I don't have any German cards left, so the turn ends. I look at the end of day phase. I don't get 10 VPs for crossing the Muse. I check victory conditions. I need more than 15 VPs to not lose. That's okay. And I win if I have 50. Well, I'm barely halfway to that. If the game does not end, return all combat chips to the cup. So all those combat chips that I drew earlier, they often find their way all over the map. They're returned to the cup. This is the cup. There's about 60 of those, I think. We remove all dispersed and add a fuel markers. So they're dispersed. I've been pretty lucky with fuel. Advance the day marker. These guys should be in the reserve box. And start a new day. So, the start of the day is when supply happens. First of all, let's look up at this box up here. We've got all these, now we get the British reserves. These all come into the reserve box. We have some German reserves. Looks like 47th Panzer Corps. Some more Americans. Some 12th Corps reserves for down south. And yep, some 47th Panzer Corps. That'd be nice, although they're not very strong. All right, that's my reserve placement. Are there any delayed reserves? So it's the 23rd. Oh, geez, there was some from last turn as well. So basically, any reserves with a number, an entry date, 2 turns prior to the present date, which is these guys as well, arrive. They arrive within the army units area. So these guys come in down south. I'll place them in a moment. These guys come in within the 5th Army's area. They are placed in a friendly, what's called a supply head, basically a road, ideally within 0 to 3 hexes of a unit of the same division. So these guys, as long as they're at least 3 or more hexes away from a non-isolated American unit. So they could go, for example, here, and that might be a good place for them because they're with their division. They are 1, 2, 3 hexes away from a non-isolated American unit. They basically go straight to the front pretty much, pretty close to it in any case. I'm now really keen to get this unit. This is a 4-step 85th Corps reinforcement, 3 hexes away, and within 1 to 3 hexes. So someone like there might be good. They could maybe help finish off this 10th Armoured formation that has got themselves stuck down there. I think I like that position. 1, 2, 3 away. They're 3 away from everyone. I can't put them there because then they're only 2 away. They're on a road here. They can cross the bridge, go 1, 2, 3. I like that idea there. Good. So we're done. We now check for OKW reserve. Basically, I'm adjacent to the Muse River. I bring on this big stack of OKW reserve units. That's not going to happen. I then move to the card preparation phase. So let me shift you over to my German command card display. And I'm trying not to get rid of the glare. So let me shift this around a bit. Okay. Incidentally, for those wondering, this is how I track my activations. So again, this is another little image on Board Game Geek. I've mounted it just on some foam core Whenever I activate a unit, I mark them, and that basically means that they can't activate in the next impulse. So the next time I activate a unit, let's say I activate this 85th core on the next impulse, I put that marker there, this slides down, and I know I can return to these guys, but not to them. The way this card preparation phase works is, whoops, got to watch my tripod. It's hanging precariously. Let me try and set up more stable. Okay, if you go flying, I apologize. So, I look first at, what are we looking at now? The 23rd, the last reinforcement card. It's a supplemental card. It goes into the supplemental card available box. These are shuffled. Okay, so first of all, before I do that, these should technically go into two separate piles, a primary card pile and a supplemental card pile. I throw them all together and then sort them out later, so I don't have to worry about it at the time. Okay, so I'm not going to get these cards back this turn. You always have these cards available. So you can always be guaranteed to activate the first Panzer Corps at least once, the second SS Panzer Corps at least once. You know this is going to come, these cards will come out over the course of a turn. These, however, let me kind of show you, they're a little bit more diverse and random. You might get the 5th Panzer Army card, you might get something nice, but it's not guaranteed. So you shuffle these cards up and draw the number indicated by the calendar, which is just 8 for this turn. So shuffle, shuffle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Unfortunately, they don't come out. They're added with the supplemental discards from the previous turn, and we repeat that process next turn. Then I take the cards I've been dealt, shuffle them up, and I deal myself 6 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's my draw pile for the turn. Right, I'll look at these cards in a moment. I'd like to lay them out in front of me, and I usually organise them by geographical area. So the 85th down the bottom, there in the middle, 2nd SS are up the top, 1st way up the top, 80th is down the bottom, and oh gee, okay, 53rd is way down the bottom as well. Sorry, here they are. We then need to prepare the American decks with new cards. So now the British are in. These cards were delayed. They now go in with the 7th Corps card. They all go into the command deck. And we draw the last 2 of the Allied actions. They also go into the deck. So I'll shuffle this Allied action deck first. That's pretty straightforward. And then we just shuffle the Allied command deck and look how many commands I got through that turn. So the fewer early in the campaign, you have 5. You can play 5 command cards before the Allies get a turn, and you can do a lot before they get to act because their deck is so thin. They're not doing a lot by this stage at the height of German expansion, the offensive. You only get to play 1 card basically, and the Allies respond, and they're getting through a lot more commands without you being able to do much. So you really become quite hamstrung. We now get to the supply phase, and I'm just looking down at my cards, and yeah, there's going to be some no fuel issues for at least one of my unit. But before we do that, we look at Allied air interdiction. I draw a command card, and if it shows air power, which it doesn't, which is good. In fact, this is a good card to get out of the way, because I don't want the airborne. Actually, the airborne's not too bad. No, it's a bad card. Nope, it's a good card, because they're all around here, keep them busy. So there's no Allied air interdiction, which is good. Last turn there was. It basically means that I discard a card and I skip the first impulse. So the Americans basically get the first turn of the day. I can now play a Bridge Engineers card. To be honest, I don't really like doing this. there's these bridges have been blown since the start of the game, and I don't need them basically. I've got, as long as I've got one bridge over here. These are my bridge markers, by the way. They're tile spaces that I've cut and painted. Aren't they awesome? Blown bridge, German bridge, and American bridge. Supply status. Right, now these guys are still on our supply, so they shift now to out of supply, while my unit, which I clumsily also put out of supply, is on low supply. They are okay, they can draw supply across there. These guys are still out of supply, so they shift to out of supply. They're okay, they're okay. These guys are now isolated, which is exciting. What have I done? These guys shift to low supply. These guys shift to isolated. And if I can shift up a bit, what else we got going on? We have some more isolated units up here. I would love to see these guys suffer some attrition. It's really hard with the elite units. They are now out of supply. Oh, sorry, they're out of supply, so they shift first to low supply, and then next turn they shift to out of supply, and they're in attrition as well. Now with all these isolated units, we need to make surrender checks. And this is where I basically roll really high, and these units all fail to surrender. But let's see how we go. This is a regular unit, and they'll surrender on a 1 to 4. Hey! Well, some of them surrender. They will lose a step. Doesn't do that much. They're a big armoured formation. Over here, these guys are, what are they? They're elite, and they will only surrender on a 1 to 2. Bugger. It's always the case. These guys are also elite on a 1 to 2. Nope. So you basically kind of have to attack those elite units. That's my dog sneezing, sorry. All right. Now we've kind of penned these guys in. They've got a regular and a regular. Top unit surrenders and suffers a step loss. Before I do it, bottom unit, regulars, they'll survive, but they're down now to just 2 steps in isolation. And up the top here, I've got an elite, nope, and nope. So I'm gonna have to attack them with the, was it 67th Corps to kind of clear them out of that area. All right, roadblock removal. Now we remove any roadblocks that are basically behind the lines. Again, it happens early in the game. It's very unlikely to happen at this stage. Roadblocks are only really popping up in VP hexes now. From turn 20 onwards, only in the VPs. They're not just popping up all over the place. And again, I'm not doing much movement now. It's really grinding. I now look to see if any card in my hand has an out of fuel formation for this day. So basically it is the 23rd of December and the 15 Panzer Grenadier Division of this corps. Ooh, that's 2 formations. Having said that, basically what would happen is I discard the card and place out of fuel markers on that formation. I actually don't mind that happening, so I'm going to discard that card, and these guys are out of fuel for the day. Yes, they're big, tough formations, but I'm facing some... Okay, what have I got? I could go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be at least 2 activations to get down there. I might just bring... This is the road to nowhere, which is interesting. What can I do? I don't know what I'm going to do down here. These guys could be in trouble. I might have to... Well, I'll figure it out later. What else? No other fuel shortages, I don't think. 23rd, we're all okay. Now, I could cancel that by playing a fuel priority event or some of the fuel markers that I've captured. I got super lucky by the first two. These are basically placed face down in 5 locations around the map. In, what's it called over here? Bellingen, apologies. In, I believe, where's all the fuel? Up here there's one in Marsh, and there's one that I haven't captured yet. Or have I captured them all? I have captured all the fuel. I've captured all the fuel. And these guys will give you, when you arrive there, you flip them over. If it's a yes, you can save these and later spend them to cancel the effects that I've just shown you. But I could have done it. I think I'll save my fuel for my inevitable drive towards the Muse, right? So that's now done, and now I return to my command phase. And we start this process all over again. This time, so when I started this video, I had 3 cards. That was right at the end of the turn. Now, I should have 6. I've lost 1 because of fuel. I've got 5, and I can think about what I want to do. I'm going to start to wrap this up, so I won't go through another complete turn. Hopefully this is giving you a sense. I'm now sort of an hour 10 into this. This is how the game works. This is, as I said, the high point. This is the most difficult part of the game. So I wanted to convey kind of a sense of how difficult it is, how heavy it is. It's very different from the opening. I have very likely made some mistakes here, particularly when activating allied units. There's just a lot to consider. I'm thinking now about what to do next, and I want to keep pushing with the 2nd SS Panzer Corps. I want to keep attacking with these guys. I can get some more formations into position around that 7th Armoured. Yes, they're in a town, but the other, actually, sorry, apologies. There are some other Americans out of contact there. So you'll cut the supply across here. Yeah, just double checking everything, making sure I haven't missed anything. I haven't drawn any 47th Corps for cards. These guys, what could they do? There's options. What I love about this game is options. You've always got so many choices to make. I've got 5 cards in my hand to potentially, I mean, ideally I'm looking to activate a large formation. They could activate, they wouldn't be able to do much. It'd be very quiet activation. That's always the quietest call for me. They don't do anything. I would use them for fixed artillery instead. So I'd play this card for the combat tactic. This is only a divisional card. These are weaker versions. You can see it's only 1/1. So what I can do here, just to run through sort of an example, I could play this 3rd Panzer Grenadier Division. Where even are they? Yeah. Oh, they're way at the top. This is okay. One criticism of the game is that's a different division. The colours look very similar, but this is the 66th Division, and the 67th Division is way up here. And you can see some of the 3rd Panzer Grenadier out on the left and the right. So it would activate just 2 of the units up there. So special events are only applicable on that date. I don't have any reserves. I could deploy all 3rd Panzer, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I could activate that unit. It may be better to either use this to activate any one unit or for combat engineers. Combat engineers are actually pretty good. They remove an improved position marker. So that's a pretty good card. It's only 1 sort of command level, but pretty good card at this stage of the game. This is a good card early on as well. It activates the 12th Volksgrenadier Division, the Fallschirmjäger, up in the north. I've kind of kept these formations behind the line in this area, so you can see these 2 here. Actually, I do need to move them into a better position. So I'm gonna start just to show you how this works. Again, I could use this for an assault coordination. So just another potential here. This is a really nice combat event. I could activate the 3rd Panzer Grenadier Division with assault coordination. So in their attacks, they activate all adjacent formations next to the enemy they're attacking, and they would all join in together. So, for example, I could activate just these 2 formations. This guy could attack here. It's not all their combat, it's just one combat, but they could attack this stack here, join in the entire rest of the corps to attack there, and then this unit could attack there. The great thing about attacking isolated units is you don't suffer any hits as the attacker. I think you ignore all hits. Plus, you draw 2 extra combat chits. That would free up that formation. Problem is, the Germans are starting to cause me problems around here, and they can counterattack. Actually, well, they're out of communication. Oh, see, I'm not sure if I did this right. Do they have to be in communication to activate? Wandering behind enemy lines. Yeah, they'll proximate to a German stack which triggers activation. Proximate to a German stack against which they have a 2-to-1 strength advantage. So they were active. And they still are. They still are proximate to German stacks where they have a 2-to-1 advantage. So this is still a problem. These guys can just keep attacking. They're elite. I think the Allies are favoured in combat, so I kind of want to use this card as much as it would be nice to have assault coordination on a low command card. I really need these guys to come together and contain this German threat. I'd get 12 Volksgrenadier, yeah. So all these 3 could activate, and I could bring them together in the forest here for a big stack of 4. This is a problem, but I've got a 12 Volksgrenadier here that I'd at least have a defensive 2. Maybe I could go 1, 2, 3. I think I have to do this just to save my bacon. I'll save the first SS Corps bacon. So, one, two. I think that'll shift in there. And these guys will go 1, 2. And then these guys will go 1, 2, because these are not projecting zones of control. These guys are. So I've got to stop upon moving into a zone of control. 1, 2. That will do. I do have some forces up here, but they're garrisoning the potential entry hexes along the map edge. It's a real pain in the backside. I've been trying to free these up to send them there. But yeah, that's it. So that's only one command point. I can spend up to 2 before I trigger the allied turn. Now. I could activate that 3rd Panzer Grenadier Division, those 2 formations, and then bring in assault coordination. But oh, hello. I just noted I've got assault coordination on this card as well. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play this. So I've played 1 card. I'm going to play this for my 2nd command. And I'm going to get ready to play this as my combat card. So let's run through another combat, folks. Okay, combat down the bottom. They're definitely actually they're in a forest. These guys are just in broken terrain. It's a good mix of allied units. They're a real pain. These two are active. I am going to play, what's going to be the most likely combat? The combat with 12 on 3, 4 to 1 in a forest, or the combat with 16 to 5, 3 to 1 in broken terrain. You don't know. I do know that there are 3 elite steps up the top and only 2 regular steps down the bottom. So I'm going to say, all right, I am going to attack down the bottom. So I'm going to say, this is my main combat. I'm bringing in assault coordination as my combat tactic. I could play more. For example, I can't play more. You are limited in the number of combat tactics you can play by the command value of the card you played. So I can only play 1 combat tactic. Another little subtle rule that's important to remember. Right, I think we're ready to fight this battle. And again, I bring out my handy summary. I've declared my target and attacking units. I have played my combat card for assault coordination. And just to show you the sheet for assault coordination, it's way up the top there. Attacker only, all friendly units adjacent to the enemy participate, even if not activated. So basically, they activate, but these guys are also, you know what I could also do? I could bring these guys down to really focus the attack. Because they can move. I can go 1, 2, oh, so they wouldn't even be able to make it in. So no, I won't do that. I could go around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do I want to get, yeah, sure, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into broken terrain. So now I've got 12, 17 on 3, 5 to 1. I don't draw. Normally I would draw an allied command card, but they are isolated. As soon as a student, as soon as a unit becomes low on supply, you stop drawing combat tactics for them. There are various shifting supply effects. When they're isolated, they don't exert a ZOC, they can only move 1 hex, can't exit enemy ZOCs, and if attacked, I draw 2 extra combat chits and disregard all attacker hits on chit draw. So I cannot suffer any losses here. So, as I said, two defender steps. I start by drawing 2 chits. Let's give this a go. Let's finish these guys off. Come on. The attacker is elite? No. The attacker is green? Ugh. Ugh. Yes, I am green. But I wouldn't suffer any hits anyway. Second minimum. Allied air power? No. German air power? No. So I can ignore that hit. Now I can draw up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because they are both 3-step units. So 6, 7 for my combat tactic, 8, 9 because they're isolated. So I'm going to draw up to 9 chits. Here we go. This has to work. 1. Only attack has armor. I believe so. Yes, 1 hit. 2. It is not quite 8 to 1, but it is not less than 3 to 1. So what am I drawing? 9. They are unsupplied. D1. It is a large attack. A large attack is if you are drawing 7 or more chits. I am drawing 7 or more chits, so that's another hit. I pretty much have reached what I need to kill these guys off, but let's keep drawing. 9, right? 6, 7, 8, 9. It's a flank attack. So you look at all these. These are all the ones that apply. We ignore the attacker hits. I can't take any hits. 1, 2, 3, 4. -1 is 3 hits. They're isolated. So we follow through basically their retreat priorities. I think it's pretty much the same. If hits are greater than defeated steps, they retreat 1 hex, so they go into here. But then they can only retreat 1 hex, so the next 2 hits have to be step losses 1, 2, and they're eliminated. And I can advance after combat into there like so. There's only 1 remaining, and that's basically a victory point. A victory point for every 2 American units you eliminate. That's 2 units eliminated, so it's a victory point. Incidentally, I haven't been tracking the VPs too closely. I'm probably a couple of points off. I'll need to have a look at the map and count everything up when it gets a bit closer. That was a pretty good result. That's my 2 command ops spent. From there, I would now draw an allied command card. I would, of course, put all these off to the side. And yeah, continue. That worked out pretty well. Got pretty lucky with those 2 cards. Yeah, so I'm going to start wrapping this up. As I said, I won't draw the next allied command. If there's any questions, let me know. Yeah, that is throughout the course of an hour and a half, we've played through pretty much most of a complete turn. As I said, I started towards the end of one turn. I'm at the beginning of another. But as I said, this is the high point. If you look at the turn track over here, I'm on the 23rd of December. It runs through to the 29th. At the end of this turn, I need at least 20 VPs to not lose. And I think I must be around 20, about 27, maybe 28. Yeah. So look, if this looks interesting, check out my preview for Enemy Action Kharkov. It's coming out T3. I'm pretty excited about that. It is, the same fundamental system, the same way you use the cards, the same way you draw chits. There are a couple of tweaked rules. I go through some of these, some of what we know. I don't know what these rules are exactly, but they're hinted at on the Compass Games website. Pre-order price for that is, I think it was $89, down from 119, so you kind of get $30 off from memory for pre-ordering it. Keep in mind, I've only ever played the German solo for Enemy Action Ardennes. I've never played the 2-player game, and I've never played the American solo. I'm only interested in the German offensive. If you've got any questions, let me know. What was I looking for? I was flicking through the book, looking for, maybe a map. I was trying to find a map of the victory conditions. Yeah, basically adding up the town and city value. I was hoping for a map, can't find one. I'll need to look for one. So, yeah, look, I think to push by the end of the game, if it runs through to the end of turn 29, the Germans need 35 victory points. And to do that, let's look at a path to victory here. I think Ardennes might just be out of my reach. I know there's only looks like a weak defender, but they're in a city, so they're doubled, so it's actually strength 4. They should not have an improved position. They left that, my apologies. But in a city, they ignore, basically defender hits are reduced by 1. You can't flank attack into a city. So they're just being at 4 and ignoring the first hit. And I don't have a lot of strength in this area. This is just infantry protecting the flank. Yeah, Cole makes a good point. I haven't played the 2-player game, but what makes it easy to play is you're not managing the AI system. I think I've conveyed most of what you do in the solo game is trying to figure out what the Americans are doing, how the opposition responds, how the AI responds, and working through these calculations. Incidentally, sorry, I should draw back up to my hand size, and I'll deal with the consequences of this draw later on, but I've only got the 9th Panzer Division here. So maybe I'll bring them on. It'll just be a 1 point card. I think I'm looking to bring them on very quickly. That's definitely what I'm going to play for 1 point. And we'll think about what else to do. What else can I talk about? My battery's running very low, but before I wrap this up, I will point out early in the game, I'm compiling a sort of after-action report of this this gameplay to cover it all for you. But I got very lucky with 12th core not drawing pretty much any activations for a long time. All the activations came from up top in the north and in the centre. So 5th core were pretty active. Who are these guys? Yeah, 5th core. We did draw the airborne, of course. And gradually as these cards are added, more activations begin to... this deck becomes fatter, it becomes loaded with certain formations, and they become more active than others. What else? Look, bridge and road networks is an important thing to look at. You're kind of navigating little road networks through here. I've got to look at this situation here around Montelange, try and kill those guys off. They're not in an improved position. They moved out of there, and it's not a German city anymore. They've recaptured it. They could actually, they're a 2-step unit, strength 2, in a town, not a city. So again, they'll absorb the first hit. I am worried about 2nd Panzer Division out here. They are vulnerable, but I have the 116th in the area. I did not draw. What I could do is, for example, play activate any one unit and then bring these guys up into to recapture, well, re-secure Recon up here. I'm kind of, my mentality now is securing the front and trying not to lose anything. I could potentially, I'm just looking at, if I look at the units I've isolated, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there's potentially 12 at a stretch. There is potentially 12 allied units out of supply behind the line. If I kill all those, that's 6 VPs. I think that would push me close to victory, 35. But keep in mind, the allies are getting more aggressive. All their actions are in the action card deck now. There are a lot of offensive cards in that deck that are just going to look to hit me and hurt me. I don't want to defend in this clear terrain here, that's for sure. But so it's kind of this again, talking about agonizing decisions, there's so much to consider. The need to advance, the desire to push through, 2nd SS, wanting just to cross this river. If I cross here, I'm so close to Hoy up here. There's a chance of a roadblock here, chance of a roadblock, of course. So, you kind of want to push, you kind of want to maintain that offensive. At the same time, you're kind of balancing with, is it time now to consolidate? Should I, start to bring the 2nd SS even further down? The divisional boundaries are broken down now, they don't matter. I could bring them all the way down and reinforce. Well, what have I got? St. Hubert here is critical. It's 2 VP. I don't want to lose that. I don't think I'll lose Ettelbruck down here. That's pretty secure. That's probably my most vulnerable holding at the moment. It's being held with a single step unit, strength 2, facing off against, 6 strength Americans who will want to attack it. Yeah. I would love for my, it kind of sucks that the surrender rolls are so terrible. Not only the rolls, but the requirements. Elite units require a 0 to 2, a 1 or 2, so you've got a 20% chance that they'll lose a step. It's a lot of work to surround these units, and then you've got to wait 3 turns before they reach isolation, and then you've got to only a 1 in 5 chance that they'll lose a step. So you kind of have to attack those elite units. Just reminding myself, what are these guys? Yep, they're elite, and they're elite down to 1 step. So maybe I could get an attack off on those guys. They are just regular 1 step. Yeah, things to consider. Yeah, right, folks. Well, look, that's about it for tonight. Thanks everyone for watching. This won't be a regular live video. As I said, this one to kind of give you an example of what it's like to play through. And again, mindful, this is almost towards the end. What do we got? There's 9, 10, 11 turns, and I'm on turn 8. No, there's more than that. There's 12, 13, 14 turns, and I'm on turn 8. So I'm just past the halfway point. All right, folks, thanks everyone for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you later.